Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this session of LitFestX. We are joined by author Anita Nair. She's the author of several best-selling novels, and her books have been translated into over 30 languages in India and abroad. She won the Central Sahitya Academy Award in 2013 for her immense contribution to children's literature. Anita, welcome to LitFestX.
Welcome, Kumar, and very delighted to be here.
Anita, as the very interesting title for today's session, author Vadis, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Author, where do you go? So, quite simply, on behalf of all our viewers, the question to you is, author Vadis.
Whither thou goest. That is the Latin translation. Right. So, the thing is, I'm at a particular point in my literary career where I have experimented pretty much with every genre of writing, be it historical fiction, crime, literary fiction, and then from there on, you have short stories, poetry, essays, plays, screenplay, everything. So I'm probably at this own point in my own head wondering, what do I do next, or where do I go next? Because as a writer, and this is what I do full time, I need to constantly challenge myself. I need to constantly make it as exciting as it is for anybody who's going to pick my book and read it. I need to feel excited about what is it that I'm going to create. So it's a great preoccupation with me right now about trying to figure out where am I going, what am I going to write next. So
Right. And do you find that this question which you are asking yourself, I mean, how is the answer coming to you? Are you seeing a lot of interaction from your fans and readers asking for particular kind of content, or really commenting back on some specific items that you've written about? How is that journey, working out for you?
Well, I must say I'm quite fortunate in the fact that I have a dedicated readership who read every genre that I have explored. I mean, there are some who would obviously prefer my literary fiction to the other kinds of writing I have done. And then there are others who like my crime more than anything else I've written. And then some others who prefer my poetry to anything else. There are different kinds of readers who seem to like different things of, different aspects of my writing. So there is, obviously there is a bit of compulsion from the reader when someone sends me a mail saying, when is the next Gouda book coming out? Or when are you going to do the second part of the Idris trilogy? Or what next, what are you going to experiment with? So on the one hand, I do know that there are readers who are expecting me to create a certain kind of literature, and then there is within me this voice that says you need to do more. You need to kind of increase the bar for yourself and see what else can you tackle and how else will you tackle it, and so on. So this is constant search for artistic expression deep within me. So whether I'm writing a children's book, or whether I'm writing a poem, or whether I'm writing an essay, or whether I'm writing a piece of fiction, it doesn't matter. All I tell myself is that I will never repeat myself, and I will never kind of sit in that comfort zone where I know I can, handle certain things in a certain way effortlessly. So I kind of think I'm masochistic because I seem to want to push myself into places I don't know much about.
And how's the experience been of working across so many different genres? I mean, clearly, very few writers and authors in India would consciously be working on multiple genres in short spans of time, and doing so successfully. One versus the other, and then moving back to the first one, and so on. Do you find yourself having to do a lot more research, between genres, or do you find that it is just coming to you as a calling, each genre?
Yes, I would think so. At each specific point of time, I have written a particular kind of writing, whatever it be, because I have felt compelled to do so. It's not because anyone has asked me to actually write anything. It's basically that I have a idea in my head, and then it just completely takes over my life and dominates me so much that that's what I want to write. And much later is when I think, oh my God, I've actually written something I've never written before. So maybe if it's from literary fiction to crime, or say from crime to his historical fiction, or back to literary fiction, as I'm going to be doing now. So it's purely driven by the kind of, I think, dynamics that's happening in the mind space, and I just find myself doing it. So I really have no logical reason to explain why I do a certain kind of writing when. It just happens, and then when the voice is in my head, I just heed it.
Right. So, one could say that you're writing, right? And that's it. I mean, the genre is something that the world or your publisher or the reader slots it into. For you, it is writing.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Because, I don't think that because I am going to write something which is probably more accessible and more read by a larger number of people, say this is, crime versus literary fiction. I don't say that I'm going to kind of, bring down my standards. I'm not going to change the way I write, in the sense that I'm not going to pander to the readers or play to the gallery or any of those things. I will still write the way I do, except that the choice of subject might be different. And maybe there is a bit of difference in the flow of the writing.
Right.
But that's purely dictated by what I'm writing. It's not because I believe that, because if I'm writing crime, I should write in a different way.
Right. And when you treat different genres, of course, differently. Like you said, you're not changing the quality of the writing because of the mass appeal of one genre versus the other, or the relative mass appeal. But do you find yourself having to change your own style? So although the quality, as you mentioned, might not differ, but your own style, are you having to radically change it?
Well, I think actually that kind of stylization changes only happens so when I shift from literary fiction to crime, for instance. Crime needs to be written in a very, very immediate sense. I like to believe that the crime fiction that I write should actually unfold in front of the eyes of the reader as he or she is reading it. So, which means that I would look at, shorter, crisper sentences, and, there's not too much of dwelling in the past. Everything is very, very dynamic. Whereas with literary fiction, since there's so much of the internal life that is dwelt upon, so what happens is sometimes you tend to kind of slow down the dynamics of the writing. The pace is kind of set in such a way that you have enough room to go back and forth. So that's pretty much the only thing. And then what I am very careful about is the choice of words, because for instance, and this is something that I've always maintained, and even when I talk to my writers who come to me for mentorship, I tell them that you have to understand, if you're going to be writing something that is set in 14th century, you cannot make a reference to a hot air balloon, because there wasn't a hot air balloon at that point of time. So your similes, your metaphors, the choice of words, some words are new words, modern words. So you can't use those words in that period, especially in dialogue. Maybe in a third person narrative, yes, but not in a piece of dialogue. So, I mean, those little details are what I go into to ensure that it's very distinct, and that the style matches the period and the style matches the pace of the story.
What are some of your observations from the of the newer writers and authors? Since you mentioned there are a lot of people who are coming to you for support and help and guidance. In
Mhm.
general, what have you seen the trend in terms of authors' own aspirations, abilities, and the style that is emerging amongst the upcoming sort of talent?
Well, I think one of there are several observations. One, of course, that I notice that a lot of writers, are driven to want to write and want to be published. It worries me a little because the drive to be published is more than the drive to write. So that is a little worrying because you're looking at the end rather than the journey towards the end. And writing is also about that fabulous sense of satisfaction that you get as you create something, and you need to enjoy the journey and forget about where it's going to take you. Enjoy it, and be able to revel in it and relish every moment of it. So I that is something that I constantly have to keep telling them, that enjoy it, and we can think the publication part of it is secondary. We can look at that at another point, but make sure that what you're doing is the best to your ability. And that's the other thing, probably because of our lifestyles, especially the urban lifestyles that we lead these days. I don't see the kind of well, dedication is not a right word, or it's a very hard word to use, but I don't see the kind of commitment that I would expect from somebody who is a true artist in every sense. There is a kind of overwhelming urge to write, which means you will find the time, you will steal the time, you will make the time to write. Instead of which, I do notice that at times it's writing is something that I'm going to try and fit in into the million things that I'm doing between my Zumba class and my badminton, or between my, coming back from work and going out with the guys for a beer or whatever. It can't happen like that. If you decide to become a writer, then it's for life. There's no. It's like you can always check out, but you can never leave, kind of situation.
Interestingly, you mentioned, urban lifestyles. I'm sure you've noticed this as many others, and I have. The lingo of the current youth is becoming so heavily influenced by social media and WhatsApp and text messaging. I mean, I sometimes wonder whether the current youth will want to read properly formed English sentences which are well punctuated and grammatically correct. How often have you seen, text messages, WhatsApps, or even emails today where people are, just forgetting everything about grammar or punctuation, or all the basic core right things about the English language. Have you seen a lot of that, and does that bother you about writing skills going forward and also readership going forward?
Well, I was, I think, telling someone the other day, I had a mail written to me by a young girl, which was a very lovely mail in the sense that she was writing to me saying how much she loved what I wrote and how she found a great sense of companionship in my books and so on. But the whole lovely mail was written in SMS lingo. And that put me off entirely, because then I wrote back to her saying that, thank you very much and everything, but next time you write someone a formal mail and a mail of appreciation, make sure that you write your words out properly, because it seems very, very tardy, it seems very lazy, and it seems like you can't be bothered to make the effort. I'm not somebody that she knows, so she can't presume that kind of familiarity with me. And then you see the same thing transferring into even writing. When people write emails and stuff like that, they don't write out proper words, and it's all it's like the Twitter lingo, even worse than the SMS one, because you're just going on the sounds rather than actually the letters and so on. And it worries me because I wonder if you know the spelling, and then if you do this, the lingo, it's perfectly fine. But if you think this is the spelling, then author or reader, where do you go, really?
So,
So, so I do worry about that, and it really bothers me when I see badly written sentences, whether it's in English or in Hindi or in Malayalam or in Tamil, any language where I think the language is not treated with respect. It bothers me. It's not just about English alone; it's any language.
right. We've been getting a few questions from our online viewers. Maybe we can take a couple of questions which you can respond to. Um, so I'm just going to show you the question. It'll pop up on your screen, and then you can respond to it.
Okay.
So here's the first one. It's by Purnima, and it says, "Please share your most favorite moment from any of your books."
Oh, from my any of my books, I think the most favorite moment would be in Lady's Coupe, where I had to describe this character Akila, who's a Tamil Brahmin, who has never eaten an egg in her life, and she actually gets around to eating an egg, and something that is so ordinary, because it is for the first time in her life, takes on this whole extraordinary feeling. And writing it was a perfectly wonderful thing for me to do, because I was actually rediscovering the joy of an egg through her eyes.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Um, the next question is from Bani, and she says, "Your characters come from a dark place. Do you see them safe in that zone?" I'm assuming she's referring to one of your crime novels.
Character, yeah, yeah. Well, all of us, not just most of us, all of us have this, heavily dark side. Some of us allow ourselves to reveal it, and some others don't. So it's the same with my characters too. All of them have very dark aspects to them. But I think, at least with my fiction, I do not shy away from addressing the darkness. I allow it to surface, and I allow my characters to actually deal with it, and to figure out how are they going to handle this darkness that is part of their life. So yes, my characters do come from a dark place in my own head, but eventually I always hope that they will find some sense of solace or some redemption of some sort.
Right. The last question, which we'll take, is here. This is it's coming up on your screen now. It's from D. Gupta, and he says, "When did you first realize you've got the skill or talent to do justice to murder mysteries?"
When did I realize I could do it? As I was writing it. As I was writing it, there were points where I would stop and look at myself and say, but I didn't know this about myself, that I could be such a horrendous, horrid woman in my head, where I could actually sit down and plot these most diabolic murders. So it was a revelation for me as well.
So, no, clearly, I think if you see the kind of questions coming in, also, I think people are curious to know how come this lovely lady who also writes about Nonu the squirrel, and who's also writing about Siddharth, and several other lovely characters, is also then writing these hardcore crime novels. So so just as you are baffled about your own ability to, like you said, be nasty or be plotting such stories, I think readers are also amused that it's the same person with such a diverse set of characters and plots.
So very often my answer to this is I'm probably schizophrenic. I have a multiple personality disorder or something like that, where I'm able to just switch personas and personalities of various writers, but ultimately leading back to this, like you said, nice person called Anita Nair, but who has all these, multiple personas. And so I'm able to just tap into that, and get the maximum I can out of that particular persona of mine.
Lovely. And unfortunately, all of these personas are still under the same name, and there is no other pen name. So thank you for that.
No. We even wear the
Great.
same clothes.
Right. So, Anita, it's been great chatting with you, and I must say it's been a very nice, candid conversation, and certainly something that all your fans and readers, I'm sure, would enjoy to get a understanding of, what keeps you going across these different genres and how you enjoy doing that. Thank you so much for joining us on LitFestX, and we look forward to seeing more great work from you as always, and wish your writing and your books all the success.
Thank you very much, Kumar. It's been a wonderful session. I've really enjoyed this. So I hope you do more of this in the years to come.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Bye bye.
Bye.